Trey Smith signs a big new deal. The All-Star Game wraps up with a swing-off of all things, which we'll get into. But also UFC 318 around the corner. All that more this episode of the Papa Shronos podcast. I was going to say that I'm going to go live this weekend before UFC 318 for a little pre-show. So tune into that if you are into the MMA side of things. And hit that subscribe button. Still on the road to 500. Trying to hit that before the NFL season starts. Without further ado, let's get into this podcast. All right, welcome back to the show, EDJ. Welcome back, man. I guess I don't know where I'm going with that. But we finally had an All-Star break.
Yeah,
All-Star Game was fascinating, but how's it going, man?
That's what you want to call it, but it's going good. I told you before we went on, I feel like this swing off is just kind of a bailout for the National League these days. Just seems for whatever reason they just can't get the job done in those All-Star games. I don't know what the deal is, but they've won, like, I guess this one and one in the past, is it 15? That can't be right. But it's not very many, I know that.
It's something like that.
I mean, that seems a while, because the National League had probably, what would you say, a 10 times better roster than the AL this year?
I mean, their roster's pretty good. I will say, though, I mean, when you look at the Tigers, the Tigers are the best team in baseball, so I don't think that you can discount them, although the Tigers players were terrible in the All-Star Game, so there's that. But, I mean, you got the Dodgers on the other side, which obviously have a lot of star power. We saw Freddie Freeman. We saw Ohtani in the game. We got to see Clayton Kershaw as well. So I would agree with you. Their roster's better. I think their roster's been better a lot of years that they lost, and I don't know what it is, because it seems like my entire lifetime the NL is finding ways to lose All-Star games, and it looked like they were going to do the same thing last night.
Yeah, I think they were up 6-0 at one point. Talk about people who didn't really show up. Chris Bubich just had a tough outing against Pete Alonso. I don't know if that really counts because they just played the Mets, so maybe, Pete Alonso remembered the pitch cadences. I don't know. But, I did like that they brought the jerseys back.
Yes.
It just seemed kind of like a mess to make the American League National League jerseys. Just let them wear their jerseys. That was the whole theatrics of the All-Star Game, and 10, 20 years ago. Guys wearing their own jerseys and knowing what team they're on and still playing for the same team as a unit and da da da. That was the whole point of it, and I think they kind of got away from that, and they're, I guess, realizing that was kind of not, I don't think dumb, but a waste of time, because that's not the point. The point is to enjoy the All-Star Game and enjoy watching people from your team or the other team play on the same team. That's the whole point. And I think they kind of realized that this year. Bobby had a 2 RBI double at one point. I think Estevez, shut him down, which, was great because he had a rough week against the Mets. And then I don't think Michael had a hit. And then Bubich obviously had a little bit of a rough start against Alonso in the National League. But it happens. You only get maybe half an inning in the All-Star game. So, whatever. But great to see 4 Royals. There was only going to be 2. But they ended up getting Estevez and Garcia there at the very end. So a strongish AL break for the Royals.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of Royals. I thought it was funny that at one point while Booge was pitching, we had Brendan Donovan at the plate. So we had a Cardinal versus a Royal. At one point, Brendan Donovan, the lone Cardinal in this game, he got on base twice. So that was nice to see. I think one was on an error, though. He did get a single into center field later in the game. I think that might have been the 8th, somewhere around in there. But going back to, real quick, the NL and their woes in the All-Star Game. 2025, of course, Tuesday night they win. 2023 with a win, which I would like to point out that those uniforms were absolutely terrible. The last 2 years, the uniforms have been really bad. I would say 2022 are the only ones that I actually liked. They were the gold. Like the NL had white and gold, and then the AL had gray and gold. But also then to the hats. I think the hats is where you should customize, do what, whatever weird stuff you want to do with the uniforms. Just do it with the hat. And I think that was fine last night. Everybody had on kind of I noticed that the team colors, they had like the secondary color is the bill. Although the Red Sox might have had the best hat of the night because it kind of looked like one of their old school style hats with the red top and then the blue bill. But going back to this, I'm getting off track and rambling. But 2025, 2023, the NL wins. And then you have to go all the way back to, I'm scrolling back down now again, 2012. 2012, the NL won. And I think that was the first time in like 15 years that they had won.
Yeah, I think that's where I got that from.
96. 96 was the last time they had won before that.
Which I'm trying to think the discrepancy of NL teams winning the World Series on top of, because you had the Cardinals in 06.
Yep.
The
Giants in their even years.
Yeah, the Giants in 10,
12 and 14.
12 and 14. But is that it?
World Series wise? That's actually
in that era?
Because
I know obviously Cardinals, Giants.
The Cardinals in 2011 as well.
Oh, 2000, that's right, 2011.
So you had 3 years in a row, but you might be onto something actually.
I'm not sure. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like they have a little bit of a drought there.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I'm going to look this up because I think you might be right. I think you might be onto something. Because now thinking about it, I don't know how many World Series winners the NL has altogether. I mean, I pay attention to when the Cardinals win, but the Cubs won, what was that, 16? Yeah, 2016. The Nationals in 19. If we go further back, yeah, the National League didn't have a ton. 08 was the Phillies. That was the one I kind of forgot about over the Tampa Bay Rays. Then before the Phillies, the Cardinals we mentioned. Before that, you have to go back to the Marlins in 03 and the Diamondbacks in 01. And then the Marlins again in 97. Yeah, there's not the list I'm looking at highlights the AL winners red and the NL winners blue by their colors, and there's not a lot of blue on this list.
Well, I mean, you have to keep in mind, the Yankees had their run. And then, you sprinkle in, I'm trying to think who else would have had a run.
Yeah, the Angels in 02, White Sox in 05. The Red Sox with their 2 in 04 and 07.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say the Red Sox had a couple in that.
Yeah, and then you got your Kansas City Royals in 2015.
Yeah. But who was the 2016? Was it?
That was the Cubs.
Cubs, thank you. And then who was 2017 then?
Astros, Red Sox. Nationals, Dodgers, Braves, Astros again, then the Rangers. So really, outside of the Rangers and the Astros won, but the Astros 2, I mean, it's really Red Sox, Yankees. The White Sox had theirs in 05.
And that's what I was trying to think. I was like, I feel like it's mainly just been 2 teams from the American League that have just kind of dominated. I mean, more so the Yankees, but I feel like the Red Sox had a couple in there, and then they had a couple runs in the playoffs in general, but just couldn't get it done. But yeah, it's. I guess the AFC is kind of that way in the NFL too. It just seems like maybe they're a little bit more apt to win the Super Bowl and stuff like that. But again, that's all one team. So I guess you can kind of look at it the Yankees. In sorts, but do you feel like that's an issue for the National League? I mean, obviously the Dodgers are great right now, but for the National League in recent years and just in the future, because once the Dodgers fall apart, because the Dodgers aren't young, they're an old team that's a wealthy team that has a lot of money, but they put it into older guys. Um, when the Dodgers kind of dissipate, what's the National League going to do? I mean, obviously they're going to be competitive in their own, but when they're playing the World Series, there's some younger American League teams out there that are going to be pretty good.
I think that's a good question. I think that really, like everything that we talked about over the last couple of minutes about the World Series, kind of highlights. Do you think about adding a salary cap to baseball? Because I think that that's what keeps the parity in other sports. I mean, look at the NBA over the last, 5, maybe 10 years. I mean, I know Golden State has been dominant, LeBron, wherever he goes, kind of, but there's a lot of parity in the NBA, and I think the NFL, to a point, there's a lot of parity. And I understand we're two Chiefs fans talking about this right now, as we've had the Chiefs have had plenty of success recently, but I do feel like there's still that level of parity because you've got the now I'm blanking San Francisco 49ers that have made a run in the last few years. The Eagles obviously winning the Super Bowl this year, and I don't know, like the Patriots had their run, but even when they had their run, what was it? Tom Brady went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl or something like that. I mean, you had Manning's Broncos, Manning's Colts as well. The Steelers got in there for a couple of championships. Hell, the Cardinals went to the let's say World Series, went to the Super Bowl to play them. So I do think that it kind of does highlight that the salary cap does make it to where there's gonna have to be parity, and I don't know if I don't know how people feel about that in baseball. I don't know if that's really gonna be something that is legitimately talked about and put on the table. Maybe in like 20 years or something like that, but I think that there's still enough baseball purists around that they don't want to see a salary cap, but it leads to stuff like this, like we were talking about. You get your random teams here and there, and I think that's why it was such a breath of fresh air in the 2023 World Series when we got the Rangers and Diamondbacks playing each other. Whereas it feels like it's Yankees, Red Sox, kind of whoever is leading the charge in the NL at the time. You had the Phillies, the Cardinals had their run, and funny enough, the Cardinals didn't win either of their World Series while they were as dominant as they were, because you look at that team they had in the early 2000s. I mean, that team was just absolutely stacked with guys like Pujols, Edmonds, Roland. They had Larry Walker they brought in for a couple of years. Tino Martinez spent a year there. The pitching that they had, so I don't know. I think that, like I said, I think it just speaks to the volume of there's not as much parity in baseball because there's no salary cap. Whether it's a problem or not is kind of up to whoever we're asking. I would say yes and no, because it is always fun
Yeah.
watching some of those big spenders lose in October.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the other flip side of it too, is that, watching the Yankees lose or watching, the Dodgers fall short or stuff like that. I think that's what people tune in for too. Um, and I think that's what made the Royals run so interesting was that, they didn't necessarily take down a big spender per se, in those runs, but they took down a future, just absolute juggernaut in Houston. Who
Yeah.
just absolutely ran wild in the American League forever. Um, it, but I think people were found the Rangers Diamondbacks World Series refreshing. However, it was like one of the lowest viewed World Series of all time. So, you know, maybe if because I don't think really either team had a true star. Do you? Other than maybe Seager, but
Yeah, I
you
would
know,
agree. I think they had guys that were kind of breaking out. I mean, this was, the breakout year for Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll on the Diamondbacks, whereas I think Ardolis Garcia's kind of fallen off a little bit, but, he had a huge year. Um, I don't know if Texas had they already signed DeGrom? Did they have DeGrom for that?
they
He
might
might have been
have.
there.
I can't remember.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you didn't have a ton of star power, but you had guys that were, kind of reaching that level and trying to break through. So I feel you, whereas, it's low rated because there's no like superstar players, but at the same time, like I think it's where you get where we have this debate I think all the time in MMA conversations where it's like the casual viewer versus the hardcore fan. And I think that's where it kind of comes into clash because your baseball purists, your hardcore baseball fans, they like the idea of not having a salary cap because of these kind of things, and then they can go see a World Series like 2023 where you got a lot of guys that are about to break into stardom essentially before they really like that's their moment, right? I mean, I feel like 2023 was the moment for a lot of guys in that World Series.
Yeah, I agree because you hear a lot of those guys' names now.
Right.
Marte was a big part of the All-Star game, the other night.
Yeah, he kicked
So,
it off for the
yeah, right. So, I mean, I think you got a lot of those guys now, but I think at that time maybe it was just poor timing. I
Yeah.
think what made the Royals' popularity work was that whole team was kind of based around five guys, Hosmer, Escobar, Gordon, Moustakas, and Perez. And those were five guys who somehow got popularity, but they were really good baseball players, but they had people behind them because they were likable. I'm not saying any of those guys weren't likable, but I'm saying that I feel like they had that likability and the intensity that people liked when they played baseball. So, I mean, and maybe that's just a biased view, but I feel like that holds true, just for the fact that I think they, watching the small market team like the Royals in 14, come 90 feet away from almost taking out the juggernaut and the Giants in 14, and then coming back and dominate baseball the next year, maybe that's what people liked. Oh, that small market team in the middle of nowhere, or not, it's not the middle of nowhere anymore, but the middle of the map who came out of nowhere and, almost beat a really strong team and then came back next year and knocked off a New York team. So maybe that was part of it, but it just seems like there aren't a lot of those really good stories anymore.
Well, and
In,
the
in
Royals
baseball.
play style, like I think was super exciting. I think
Right,
that's what got a lot of people.
right. Yeah, the next guy up and move the line and stuff like that. And I think that kind of changed the way of baseball in a way, because back then, eh, back then, 10 years ago, it seemed like maybe it was still more of a, who can ever hit it over the fence more and da da da. But after that, it seemed like the game kind of changed, and then it was more speed, and then it was more, statistically looking at, okay, can this guy get from first to third in under 6 seconds or whatever? And I think a lot of teams started to look at that, and then you kind of see the changes. Obviously Houston kind of put a dole to that because all they did was hit the ball over the wall for 7 years, and just smash teams like nobody's business, cheating included. But um, but they were still good. So I think the Royals did change baseball in a way, maybe not all the way, but they definitely added an element to it that I don't think people thought about 10 years ago.
Well, they proved that small ball can still win. They played a very much like 80s, early 90s style of baseball. And I think you're right, but I do think it's interesting you say that, just for the simple fact that I feel like today's game is more so built around hit it over the fence. Like you can strike out 150, 200 times, that's fine. You hit 35 bombs, like you're an all-star, and you hit 225. And maybe that started to change the last couple of years, but like the Joey Gallos of the world. I mean, at one point, I think that dude was hitting like 215, but he had 35 home runs, 40 home runs, and it was like, oh, Joey Gallo's a star. And I'm just like, have you seen his average? Have you seen how many times he struck out? Like, but I think that also comes with some more, I feel like, analytics that we hadn't seen or hadn't been used as much, like whiff percentage. I hear a lot nowadays in the last year or so, and that's one thing where, like, I think Brendan Donovan, I was going to use his nickname of Donnie, but where a big place where he kind of shines and has gotten that ability to shine on an all-star level this year is because he has the lowest whiff percentage of his career. And the guy has been really just tearing it up all year, and he's just doing it with singles and doubles and things like that, and good base running. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's smart on the base paths, and I do think that it's coming back around to that, like maybe in just the last 2 to 3 years ish. Because even seeing a guy like Ohtani hit 50 home runs, stole 50 bases last year, and the hit that he got in the first inning of the All-Star game was, I mean, that's some real old school stuff of just hit it where it came from and, just figure out a way to dump it somewhere where they ain't, hit it where they ain't. That's like the classic cliche of baseball, right? Like, and it feels like, there for a time period, it was like, well, hit it over the fence, and then nobody's there. Like, I guess, but these guys have value. And I think the Royals reminded everybody during that time period, hey, you can still get you a Gerard Dyson that will come in the 7th inning of a game you're down by 1, and he'll steal second and make it to home from first base on, a little single that a lot of other guys wouldn't, or your Lorenzo Canes that hits for good contact. And what was the meme that they were sharing around the time? It was like 60% of the ocean is covered, or 60% of the earth is covered by water. The rest is covered by Lorenzo Cain, and stuff like that. I mean, Hosmer too. He could hit for power, but he hit for a good average. Moustakas, same thing. All of these guys, they hit for a good average, and when the power came, it was like, oh hey, that's an added bonus,
Yeah, and I think the Royals just struck gold. And
Yeah.
obviously it took them a few years. And that was the other part too, is that the Royals were willing to be patient. And I don't know if they knew what they had, and we'll tell you, of course we did, but the Royals were willing to be patient, and they at least had an idea of who they could potentially have. And I think and I don't know if he's underrated, but one of the best left fielders to ever do it, and Alex Gordon, who should be in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame very shortly, I believe. Um, he has, what is it, 8 Gold Gloves, 2 Platinum. If not the best, I'll put it this way: I believe Alex Gordon is one of the best, if not the best, defensive left fielders of all time. I don't
Okay.
know how you feel that, but I mean,
I was
I think that's
curious
a
where you're
hard
about to go
argument.
with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to make an argument that he's not, you know, in at least the top 3 or 5 of best defensive left fielders of all time.
Specifically left fielder, you're saying?
Well, I mean, outfield's a broad statement, because I mean, we're
Yeah, I
talking about,
agree. I
yeah,
was about to
I mean,
say
we're
like a
talking about,
Torrey Hunter or somebody like that,
yeah,
Ichiro.
because you have
Uh,
Torrey Hunter, Jimmy Edmonds, there's a lot of guys out there, um, who were fantastic outfielders, but I think just in terms of playing left field defensively, it didn't get much better than Alex Gordon.
I think that's fair, and the fact that he started as a third baseman. I feel like a lot of people probably won't remember that that he was over there at third base, and you will know this better. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was he before or after Mark Tien? Was Tien the reason that he moved to left field, or did
I
Tien
think it
move to
was
left for him?
I think they played on the same team at one point. I
That's what I
don't
thought.
know if that was the reason, but I do believe you're right. Mark Tien and Gordon played on the same team. I think Gordon may have still been at third base when Tien was on the team, but I can't remember. I think DeJesus was still here,
You might be
if I
right.
remember correctly. Um, there's a lot of guys you kind of forget about on that team, but
No, that's a
uh,
fact. Deep Royals pools right here, guys. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of
if you know, you know.
maybe Esteban, maybe Esteban German was still on the team.
Wow,
Um,
that's a name.
I know. I'm trying to think who was. They brought us up first base the other day. I was trying to think of a guy. Um, it wasn't Matt Stairs, but that's a name too. You can look up Matt Stairs any day of the week you want to.
I've been
That was a
playing a
character.
lot of 2005 MVP baseball, and Matt Stairs is on the
Hmm.
roster.
Yeah. Um, Ken Harvey. Um, I mean, there's a lot of guys the Royals have, but you have no idea who we're talking about. So um,
Right.
uh, let's see. Well, that'll take forever, but um, there we're going to talk about the actual rules here in a second. But there was one guy who someone brought up that I had kind of forgotten, or not forgotten about, but a guy who just kind of went away, who had all the potential in the world, was Raul Mondesi Jr. And all the potential in the world that the Royals put in him, and he just kind of just said, I haven't heard his name in a long time. He wasn't old. I just, he just kind of didn't work out with the Royals, and that happens. But he got traded, I believe, and now I don't know what he's doing.
Interesting. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. So I don't know what's up with his name, but I just went to Baseball Reference to see if because I know who you're talking about, but Adalberto Mondesi.
Okay,
But I mean
okay.
they also did have him listed as Raul Mondesi Jr. on
Okay, I was gonna say I know it was Raul Mondesi Jr. I was like, well, I
MLB.com.
mean,
Unless he has two different sons. I don't know. That's actually
hmm.
no, I think he has two different sons. So Adalberto was the
Okay.
Royals player. Raul Mondesi Jr. played for the Brewers and Rays. But
That's right.
Adalberto Mondesi, last I knew, he's in Boston. He's 29 years old now. I don't know. He never
I was gonna
played
say
for
he wasn't
Boston. Like
old.
he's in
Yeah,
the minors somewhere. I don't know. But
Alberto Mondesi. That's right. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
that
Um, well, it goes to show that one. But it. um, I guess I should know that, but well, I did. Whatever. Names are names. But um,
sure.
it
You got the
just it
dad
didn't
right.
work out. I got the data right, so whatever. Whatever. I'm sure. Um, it didn't work out. And
Yeah.
it was so weird because he just had a lot of hype around him. And he was in the organization. He got hurt a lot, and that happens. But it kind of fell through the cracks in a way. I don't know if the Royals felt like it just wasn't meant to be or whatever it was, but um, I think the rise of Whit Merrifield kind of didn't really help him much. Because that was around the time when Merrifield kind of got hot and stuff like that, and was still on the team and was kind of the beloved character, and just a lot of different issues with that. I would have liked to seen what happened if he would have stayed healthy. When he was healthy, he
Yeah.
was a
He was
very
good.
good defensive shortstop,
Yeah.
very good. Um, but with baseball, it's either do or die, and unfortunately, it just didn't happen. But this made me reflect on a point because I was thinking about shortstop, I was thinking about defensive play, and the run Bobby's been on defensively has just been wicked. I mean, the couple of plays he made against the Mets in the series before the All Star break were just insane. I mean, we're talking about double hops to his I'm trying to think third base, so that'd probably be his left arm, I would assume. Well, it'd be his bare hand, so probably his right arm. But throwing across his body a double hop, not a shallow shortstop, it's deep shortstop, and he gets it on a one hop. I mean, it's truly fascinating to watch someone live play that way, and I don't think you realize what you have in front of you. I mean, it's truly just freaky generational talent. It really is.
Yeah, I mean Bobby Wood is I mean he's on another level, I think. And there was a tweet I saw today, I think it was Curtis Siebold of 810, that said, what player do you think has a chance to win, a respective award the most? And it was Bobby Witt for MVP, Chris Bubich for Cy Young, or Noah Cameron for Rookie of the Year. Personally, and the poll reflected this of most of the Royals fans, think it's Noah Cameron. That's one thing about Bobby that I feel like it does kind of suck that he's in a small market, that the Royals are a small market team, for the simple fact that I don't think he gets enough love in like an MVP talk. I think we talked about it last year, or at some point we've talked about last year where, he probably should have got more recognition last year towards a possible AL MVP.
Well, he should have, and I think that was a win if Aaron Judge doesn't have a freaky year,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those things. And honestly, I think he'd be towards the front this year if there weren't, Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge again freaky years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it, Bobby's at the front. And I think people saw that at the All-Star game, with the 2-run double that he had, and um, he's just freaky to watch. Another guy that I've been super proud of, I've talked about a couple times, Michael Garcia.
Yeah.
Talk about a guy who the Royals just weren't really sure what he was going to be. I know I said that before, but they really weren't. He was playing third base, he was playing second base. They just weren't sure what to do with him. So they actually had India playing third base to start the year.
Okay.
And it was just kind of a little rough for him at third base side. So they moved to second and put Michael back at third. Obviously, Michael Massey's injury doesn't help. Um, but Michael's been fantastic defensively, and he deserved the All-Star bid. I'm glad he got it. Uh, but I think the unsung hero this year has been Michael Garcia. Another guy who has been an extremely unsung hero recently, I think was had 3 walk-offs in 1 week, is Nick Lofton. I mean, talk about a guy who, has been a minor league player, kind of a Royals utility player every now and then. He plays everywhere. He plays the outfield, he plays infield. But for the third game on this homestand before the All-Star break, he had a walk-off. I mean, so there's a lot of potential on this Royals team to really do things the right way and turn things around and get everything back to where it was last year. Listen, I said a couple weeks ago or last week or whatever it was, I said if the Royals sweep the Pirates and if they sneak out 1 against the Mets, if they got 2, that was great. But if they sneak out 1 against the Mets, they're going to buy. They need to buy, and I think they will. The AL Central reflects that, and the AL wildcard reflects that too. They're not out of this. So if they can continue to play like they are, because they only lost 1 series of the last 4. I think they're in a much better spot than they were 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think they could look even stronger heading out of the All-Star break. Obviously, I think the most frustrated player is Jack. It's just frustrating, man. It's tough because if you're a kid like him and you just watch yourself smash a 466-foot home run dead center field over the quick trip sign and hitting the bottom of the scoreboard, you're fired up. I mean, that's one of the longest home runs in Kaufman from a rookie ever. But these teams are ready for him. They're not going to give him a pitch down the middle because they saw what he did to one pitch down the middle. So it's
Yeah.
frustrating. It's going to get frustrating, but he'll figure it out. I have not seen him have a bad at bat. I just haven't seen it. Pitchers are just really pitching him closely. They're pitching him like a legit threat, and he is. So, I haven't seen him go up there and, swing wildly and miss like crazy and make you think, oh boy, that's just not happening. And I think people look at averages too closely and go, oh, well, he's not panning out. He is. I mean, this guy literally hit a ground ball 111 miles per hour, and a second baseman dove and caught it. Keep that in mind. 111 miles per hour. You can't even blink, that's so fast. And a second baseman just caught it.
Yeah,
It's just the breaks of the pros.
No, that's a fact, and I think that from what I've seen from Jack Caglione has been great, and as you said, he's not had a bad at bat. I haven't seen one either. I feel like that first series where he got called up against the Cardinals, I think the first one he hit was 114 off the bat in the center field, right at somebody. And that was his whole series, it felt like. I think he ended up getting a hit in that series. I might be wrong, but it was just a quick 2-game series. And, it'll happen, eventually. When you look at those kind of stats, the exit velo and, launch angles, all that stuff, all the new age stuff that we look at nowadays, is it's going to come around. And like you said, it's just the big leagues. I mean, like, I've mentioned it a couple times that we've talked about Jack. We saw it with Jackson Holiday last year. I mean, you're going to struggle at some point. As a Cardinals fan, watching Jordan Walker be sent up and down, I think that, if you really see potential in a guy, I think stick it out with them as long as you can. And, maybe they do need to go back down, but you need to let them work it out. And, I think Jackson Holiday was something kind of crazy, like 2 for 100 and something or something like that last year, and got sent back down, which at that point, yeah, he needed to be sent back down. But look at him this year. I mean, he's had a pretty good year and bounced back from that. So it's not to say you can't bounce back from something like that, or, some kid comes up and it's like, oh, this isn't the kid that we thought that he was going to be. Let's send him back down and get rid of him or something like that. It's like you got to, just like you mentioned with the 2015 Royals, they were patient. You got to be patient with guys and prospects. Yeah, and to your point of the Royals being buyers, I think absolutely you're right. I think that they should be buyers at the break. I mean, I can't remember now off the top of my head if it was 2.5 or 5.5 back out of the wild card. Not far. I mean, they are right there in the mix.
I think when we talked initially, it was 5.5, but they won 4 out of the last 6. So I mean, maybe I haven't moved a whole lot, but I think they're a little bit closer than they were. But there's a lot of teams, a couple games out of the AL wild card right now.
Yeah.
So I think they're just kind of caught up in a tunnel more than anything of like 5 or 6 teams that are in that area of like 4 games back. So it's still close right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is everyone. We know who's in the mix. I think in the AL, when I was looking at it, there's really just, Baltimore, the Athletics, Chicago, they're definitely kind of out of it. The Royals at 47 and 50, they're 4.5 out of the wild card, is what it is. And then out of the Central, you got the best team in baseball in your division, so that's kind of tough. I can't hold it against them. They're 12 games out. But just 3 games under 500. I think, like you said, they did a great job at, getting, stringing together some wins on that last homestand before the break. Hopefully they, went in, they had a nice break, and they refresh and they come out with, a resurgence in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of thinking about. After that last game against the Mets, I was kind of glad the All-Star break was up because I think that'll help Jack too. Yeah. Because he's literally played every game but like 2 since he's been called up. So, I think a good break to just kind of reset. Because if you're going in day after day after day after day and you're frustrated and you're still playing in the major leagues and it's getting more frustrating because you're playing better pitchers, you're playing better teams, it's tough. And I think that can really get to somebody. So to get a couple days off, in actual days off, and just sit and relax and just think about something else for once, for a couple days, I think that'll help them a lot, and I think that'll refresh them. I think they come out and they play the Marlins in Miami. That should be a winnable series for them. But then it gets a little tougher. They play the Cubs next after that, I believe, and then maybe Cleveland after. So, it's not the easiest after that, but it's winnable. Watching the Royals play the Mets, who the Mets are a good team, it's doable. They're right there. Like I've said all year, they're right there. They just need something. I can't figure out what it is, but they need something.
Yeah, I feel you. And, over on the other side, as a Cardinals fan, I feel about the same way. There's something that needs to happen, and it's just like last year where it's like you look at the Royals and they're in a good spot. Maybe not as good of a spot as they were last year, but when I look at the records and I see 47 and 50, the Royals are 3 games under 500. They're only 4 games out of the wild card. And then you look at the Cardinals, who are 51 and 46. They're only a game and a half out of the wild card, which is, obviously very doable. But then you start looking around at the wild card teams, the Brewers, the Mets, the Padres, the Giants, who just traded for Rafael Devers, and then you get the Cardinals. And then after that, you have the Reds, Diamondbacks, Marlins, and then the Braves all the way down there at 42 and 53. And it's just like, it feels like we are the leader of the first ones out. It's what it really feels like at this point.
Well, I mean, those are the teams you mentioned shortly after the Cardinals. A lot of those teams are really good teams.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and the NL West is wildly good. I mean, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres, Giants. That's four playoff teams right there. But all of them are competing to win their own division. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they all have pretty strong records right now. Like I can't name off the top of my head, but
Well, you got the Dodgers at
yeah,
58 and 39. You got the Padres at 52 and 44, and then the Giants at 52 and 45.
yeah, and then
And the
what the
Diamondbacks
Diamondbacks are
have the
winning.
same record as the Royals, 47 and 50. So they're
Okay,
right there in the mix.
so not as strong, but I mean, that's still decent. So I mean, you have three great teams and another really good team. So yeah, the Cardinals, that's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
because it just feels like you said, the Cardinals are just on that ledge, right? Of either are you going to push us and fall in, or are we going to stand up and be the last one surviving? It just kind of
Right.
seems like that's the message that the Cardinals are at right now. You know, who who would you want them to go? I mean, the Royals are what they are right now, but who do you want the Cardinals to go to get? Who, if being the Cardinals fan you are, who do you want them to go out and get if they could get anybody?
I don't know if it's if I have a person or anything, but I do think that they need some help in the bullpen. I think that maybe somebody, another, maybe some power, because I don't think the Cardinals really have any power in their lineup. Where not like that. It's a weird year for the Cardinals, I think, where you've got the Nolan Arenado situation. I think his contract's up at the end of the year. You can't trade him; he has a no trade clause. And then you got Ryan Helsley that you're gonna have to pay at the end of the year. So honestly, the funny part about all of this, I feel like, is that I could see the Cardinals being sellers at the break and the Royals be buyers, and they have 4 games separating them, where the Cardinals are 51 and 46 and the Royals are 47 and 50. And I mean, I could definitely see them deciding just, oh, okay, let's sell the rest of this year. We'll come back next year and reload and be better. Which I don't know if that's actually not a bad idea, to be 100% honest. I feel like we've gotten here this far. Helsley is a guy that I don't want to see go because I'm a fan personally. But I don't think it's a bad idea to trade Helsley off and see what you can get out of him. I mean, you've got an all-star closer, former all-star, because I don't think that he made the all-star team this year. But very up and down, very closer-ish. I mean, he'd come in and shut everybody down. I feel like really what his specialty was before was he'd come in and somehow get the bases loaded, and we'd come within one run and then strike everybody out from there. So I don't know. I think that the Cardinals, it's bleak right now. I feel like the situation. It feels like every time the Cardinals get a head of steam going, it's like they just flatline. It's like we talked 2 weeks ago about it when they went into Cleveland and they swept the Guardians that weekend, and then they immediately go to Pittsburgh and get swept, and it's like it's Pittsburgh, and the Royals turned around and swept Pittsburgh. So,
Well, hey, I mean, Pittsburgh gave the Royals a game or two, a hard time, and I was bummed because I feel like Skeens was supposed to pitch the third game, and maybe I was wrong, but I wanted to see that, but unfortunately, I won't get to. Um, but yeah, I thought that's interesting what you said. So I mean, as a fan of the Cardinals right now, you feel like selling is their best option for the future because you feel like they have too much tied into right now. Is that basically what you mean?
I think maybe, yeah. I think that selling might be the best way for the future if they could find somebody good enough to go after, whether it's a prospect or whatever. I think that the Cardinals really wanted this year to be an initiative of youth. They already planned to be losers this year. I mean, for the most part, I mean, they basically as much said it to the fan base. I mean, they worked all off season trying to trade Nolan Arenado. His contract finally is up at the end of the year. Like 85% sure about that. Helsley, you're gonna have to pay because I think his arbitration is over after this year. I think he's on, and they've penny pinched him through arbitration for like 3 years. So I don't know if he even comes back, or wants to come back at this point. I mean, I don't know where everybody's heads are, what kind of money he could get somewhere else, or what he's gonna command. I just don't know. So those guys more in the know. If he's gonna command a lot, I mean, maybe he'd be a good rental for a Yankees team or somebody else. Somebody that has some good prospects. I mean, I can't say because I don't know a lot of the prospects at the moment, or who's hot, what the trade news is, kind of deal. Just because I really haven't followed baseball like that well in a long time. I feel like these last couple of years has really kind of been me getting back into it big time, and this year I've followed along as much as I have in a decade. But I do think that maybe it is just better to sell. I mean, like I said, it looks like you're the first out anyways at this point. How many more months can we go on? I mean, we only have 2 more months left in the season, 2.5. How many more weeks can we go on though, of seeing this team go and sweep a supposed contender, or play really well for a week or two, just to lose to everybody you're supposed to beat?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got it on the head, and I think that's the other part of it too, is that you guys are in a tough spot because of the fact that you're going to have to play the Cubs multiple times again.
Yep.
And that's just tough. And like you said, the Brewers are right there too, and obviously, the Cardinals can probably figure it out and get something done, but it, it just boils down to baseball is tricky.
That's a fact.
How much of it is because I agree with you. I think the Royals are in a good spot of youth. A lot of their guys that are playing well right now are 25, 26, 24. So the Royals are okay. Obviously, they're going to have to figure out something, whatever Salvi decides to do at the end of this year. No one really knows. A lot of people feel like this could be it for him. It could be. I don't think he said either way, but I think he's kind of alluded to this might be it for him. Who knows? We'll see. But, Freddie Fermin is a good replacement. He's a great defensive catcher. He's actually hitting pretty good this year in the games he's played, 270-ish, I believe, right now. So that's definitely an option the Royals have. He's 5 or 6 years younger than Salvi, so he's got a couple years behind the plate. So, the Royals are in a good spot. And if they have to sell a guy or two to maybe down the line, I know a lot of Royals fans, if the Royals were struggling even more so heading into the All-Star break, a lot of people said, well, we'll sell Bubich, sell somebody else, sell Bubich, maybe see what you can get for Lugo. But how about the turnaround for Seth Lugo? I mean, in the month of June, he had 2 runs or fewer in all 5 of his starts, and I believe he's had another 2-run game in July. So, so I think Seth Lugo's back.
Seth Lugo is one of the best signings in a long time for the Kansas City Royals.
And Rengus is too. Unfortunately, he's just had so many, continuous injuries this year. It's really hampered him. He's on the 60-day IL right now. The Royals pitching it's been good, but it's been hampered by injuries. We've just finally seen Irsay come back. Still haven't seen Hunter Harvey much at all, and obviously Cole Rengus. But I mean, the Royals are set up for a good future. It just depends on, where they go from here. Obviously, a veteran outfielder will help, but I think it's all in due time, and Contreras will figure it out, and I think Picola will figure it out, and it's hopeful in Kansas City, of a bright future.
Yeah, I think whereas on the other side of the state, it is very not hopeful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll try to feel bad for you guys someday.
Understandable.
I don't know if you want to get into this or not. You guys are above 500.
Yeah.
Obviously. I know I asked you this a month or two ago. What's the deal with people not showing up at the games? At this point, do you feel like the holdout is just people being selfish at this point, or do you still feel like it's worth anything? Because people still aren't showing up.
I think that's a double-edged sword because, on one hand, like the team, the players, they're doing the best with what they got, right? but I think the front office has failed so miserably for years upon years. I mean, when you look at, and I can't remember what All-Star game it was, and I said this on the podcast the other day where I was going solo, but I said, Royals fans, EDJ kind of knows what it's like to be a Cardinals fan in this All-Star game with Brent Rooker and Ryan O'Hearn. They were both UD or UF. They were designated for assignment. DFA. There we go.
Yeah. So I didn't even remember that Rooker was on the Royals.
I didn't either. I did remember O'Hearn, but I didn't remember Rooker.
I remember Ryan O'Hearn, but because he actually played first base a little bit on the Royals, but I didn't even remember Rooker was on the Royals until someone said, well, we thought Brent Rooker was just, a minor league guy, but look at him now. I was like, he was on the Royals?
Right.
But apparently it wasn't very long, which I thought was kind of odd because the Royals are usually, pretty patient with guys like that. But who knows? Maybe he got hurt or something. I can't remember what happened. But
I think definitely too patient with some guys like Bubba Starling, and there's a couple you could name there.
Well, I mean, we could be here all night with that, but
I mean, any team, I think you could go down a list.
Yeah, any team, but I feel like Bubba Starling was just a good story. He played quarterback at Gardner Edgerton, and he ended up changing to baseball, and he got to the professional leagues, and he got all the way to the major leagues. And it only took him. I don't think it took him that long either. So he was a good story, but there's a lot of guys who just fly up through the ranks and get to the major leagues, and then you just kind of don't hear their name anymore. But that's baseball.
Yeah.
It's how it is.
I mean,
but anyway,
Adalberto Mondesi was a perfect example that we went through earlier.
Well, I mean, I thought his name was Raul. So, it's, but but I guess we kind of got distracted off the point. So, I mean, it just seems kind of, to me, obviously I'm a Royals fan, so I'm not going to give much slack to Cardinals fans because I've watched them sit there and listen to them, and we won't get into that. But, it just seems odd to me. I just, if you're over 500 and if you're playing well, which Cardinals aren't bad, and they're playing fine, but it just seems like this is the pro team you got. And does it feel to you like maybe this is why the Rams had to go? I mean, obviously I know there's a lot of controversy about the Rams and but is this kind of the attitude that made the Rams leave? I don't know. How do you think about that? Because I know you didn't grow up in St. Louis, but you were close enough to it.
Yeah, I think that possibly. I mean, I think that, I feel like St. Louis, and look, I'm a Kansas City kid at the end of the day. I mean, I grew up most of my life here, and I went to ball games in St. Louis, obviously. So, I mean, I don't know for sure, so I'm kind of, prefacing, but the Cardinals have always been the biggest draw in St. Louis, right? That's a baseball city. Whereas I think in Kansas City, you got a football city. I think that's where the dynamic between the two, cities come when it comes to the baseball rivalry. The Cardinals are a real blue blood of Major League Baseball, essentially, right? They've been around since 1882 is when the Cardinals came around. I mean, they've been around forever. They helped give birth to the minor league system. So I do think that it's kind of I don't know, I mean, definitely an attitude of noses in the air of this team is just not good enough for us kind of thing as Cardinals fans. But I do think that, the attitude is kind of what I was trying to get to was I think St. Louis dumps off on, well, it was Stan Kroenke that, wanted to take the, team, and he wanted to take them to L.A. to make more money and, all of these things. At the end of the day, there's no fan support. There was no fan support. Let's be real. There's another reason why. I mean, I get what he did, but remember, they also lost the Cardinals too. The football Cardinals. They were in St. Louis before that, before they went to Arizona and the Bidwells. Same kind of deal where it's always, well, it was the Bidwells' fault. And it's like, well, you can't keep losing football teams and tell me it's always the owner's fault. Like, it's like that, if you say everybody else is an asshole, you better start looking in the mirror kind of thing. Like, I think is really what it comes down to. So yes, I do think that part of that is like they are not going to come out if they're not winning. And to be fair about Kansas City, don't really come out to Royals games, right? A lot of people don't come out to Royals games when they're losing, and it is what it is. But then you turn around and you look at the Chiefs. They're losing and they're still selling out games. So like, I feel like a pretty good parallel to, if it was what it was, like I think they'd still be selling out games. A lot of people would be going, but I do think it's a lot of front office at the end of the day. I think it's a protest of the front office, and like I said, like we said, everyone can go on with the list. Well, let me do one real quick for the Cardinals, which I'm sure I've done a few times. Ordolis Garcia, Sandy Alcantara, who else? Randy Arozarena, Zach Gowen. I mean, just to name a few that have been let go for, so a couple bags of chips and some ho-hos in the last 5 to 6 years. So I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think that's true, and I think St. Louis, is a baseball town and a baseball city, and that's what they love. I don't know. I agree with you. I mean, we both known this forever. He's been a Chiefs fan forever, but the Chiefs can go 2-14, and there's still 50,000 people there. They may not be very happy, but
Right.
There's still 50,000 people there.
I think that's a good point, because it may not be sold out necessarily, but there's still going to be 50,000 people there. There's still going to be a large amount of folks at that game. Yeah. Like I said, they might not be happy, but they're there.
Yeah, and maybe that tests to the sport of football itself. I think people can go and enjoy football a little bit more, just even if your team's bad, because it's still a contact sport, and people like contact sports.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it too, and maybe it's that Midwestern draw, because you see teams like the Jaguars or something like that, and there's maybe, or let's use LA as reference, because you used LA to talk about the Cardinals and the Rams. If you go to a Chargers game,
yeah,
you would have no idea it's a Chargers game.
Yeah,
you really wouldn't. I mean, if you watch them play the Chiefs, it's 75% red. And I'm not saying, well, the Chiefs just have a big falling everywhere. In LA, they sure do. It's not all that. It's not that way everywhere. But for some reason, in LA and Las Vegas, especially,
what's crazy? San Diego as well. Just
San Diego too. Yeah.
Yeah, just to throw this in here, because I went to a bar while I was out there a couple months ago. There was literally a Chiefs bar in San Diego. It's called Home and Away. I think I wore the hat one time on the podcast, but it just, I got a hat from there. It's got the arrowhead on it, and it just says H&A in the arrowhead for Home and Away, and it's got a little SD. It looks like a Padres logo, but it's red. But it was a Chiefs bar out there. There's a Chiefs bar in Philly. I mean, I do think the Chiefs have a stronghold of a fan base, and I don't know what it is. And I think maybe to go back to your, like, we just kind of rub off on everybody else because we're, like the Midwestern charm, you know what I mean? And let me get through there, when they did that whole thing right at the end of the year. And I don't know, but like you said, yeah, I think almost any game, whether it's Vegas or LA with the Chargers and the Raiders, you see a lot of the road team. Whoever it is, you see a lot of the road team. But that's also what you get with those, huge cities like that, where, there's going to be a lot of people that are fans of other teams in your city.
True. I didn't really, that's a good part of it too. But it just seems like if you're going to bring a team to a big city like in LA, like a Las Vegas, even a third team in New York, let's say, you would at least expect it to have an 80-20 ratio for you, but it just seems like, and again, I think Vegas has it a little bit better. I think they're a little bit more drawn to the Raiders because Vegas never really had a pro team. They're going to have the A's soon, obviously. Yeah. But, that was kind of that's their first pro team. Is it ever? I don't think it's ever, but in a long time.
Vegas? I think so.
Is it? Okay. I didn't think so.
Hey, the world of sports stayed away until gambling was like okayed by whoever okayed
that's true.
But...
That's a fair point. Gambling did add a lot of political to that. That's true. So, I mean, I can see why the Raiders went there. I think they fit better in Vegas anyway. It just kind of seems like a Vegas-ish team. You know, um, so good for them. I think that's where they need to be, and I think Vegas is kind of rallied around the Raiders a little bit. I don't know how they'll do with the A's. That'll be interesting to see. Um, I think their stadium's supposed to be super cool. I haven't seen it yet, but
Yeah, I've
the
seen some
drawings of it
renderings and it looks
like that.
crazy. But I also agree with you. How will they do with that team? Because that is not a winning team. Like they haven't won since the '80s.
Well, it's funny because they came
Oh,
here
they
and
had a run in 2000s, I guess. Sorry.
that's true. Well, the wild card game in 2014, one of the most historic games of all time. Um, but they came here and really lit us up. They have a really good offense, and
Yeah.
they have a lot of good bats on that team, but their pitching is just horrendous. But of course, it wasn't here, but that's okay. But um, I think they have the lowest ERA or the highest ERA in MLB. I think pretty close to it,
Damn.
and their pitching is just bad. But their offense is really good. So I mean, and I think they have a potential there, but I guess it'll depend on if they decide to sell Rooker or not. But I think Rooker just signed like an 8-year deal, didn't he?
I don't know. That's actually a good question because I'm not sure. But that would be very smart of them, especially if they are thinking about that and thinking, hey, because that is one thing that I don't know if a lot of owners or anything like that thinks of when it comes down to it. Of like, you gotta, if you're gonna move or you're gonna do something like that, you have to figure out a way to sink your hooks into the community. You have to have a reason to cheer for them. And like look at LA. I think it's a perfect example where you look at the Rams and they move there, they go to a Super Bowl, they lose, but then they sell everything and figure it out to get Matt Stafford, Von Miller. Cooper Kupp becomes a superstar for a year, and all of a sudden they win a Super Bowl, and the city of LA loves the Rams again. And is in love with the Rams. Whereas you had the Chargers, and it's like they're playing in the damn arena that the X Games were held in back in the day, like that one in Carson or whatever it is. But like, did not look. Maybe it was a StubHub Center or something like that. But didn't even look like an NFL team should be playing there. I mean, it looked like akin to what the A's and the Rays are doing this year, playing on a minor league stadium. Where I will just never forget that first game that we played them on the road. You get the Chiefs at the Chargers, and I mean, like the whole entire stadium is red. And I want to say like Tyreek Hill had like a crazy game in that game. I think it was
Or are you
still Alex
talking
Smith at
about
that point.
potentially? Are you talking about Cartilage Gate, where Tyrod Taylor, allegedly
No,
got
that was the first
hurt?
game at SoFi. Yeah, that was the first game at SoFi.
Was it at SoFi?
Yeah,
I
because that
thought
was
it was the
Herbert's
one at
first
StubHub.
start. No, I'm talking
Okay,
about a
so
few
you're right.
years
Yeah,
before that when they were in that little
yeah. Okay.
stadium they were in, and I just remember thinking, what are the Chargers? Like, are they an
Right.
NFL team or
Yeah.
not? And nobody wants the Chargers. And Dean Spanos
No,
is Dean Spanos, so.
well, and I think that's one team that screwed the pooch on moving. I think San
Yeah.
Diego was a great spot, and I don't
Rooker
understand what
is
happened.
signed until 2030, just FYI.
Okay, I was gonna say I
Yeah.
thought he had a couple of years
Yeah.
left. So obviously they're probably not going to do that, but I think they're looking for his future, and that's fine. If you have a guy like, maybe it wasn't exactly a Bobby contract, but you
Right.
have him for 5 or 6 more years, and that's your future, and that's a good future piece to build around. Um, you know, um, Jacob Wilson making the All-Star game. They obviously have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah.
He's a rookie. Probably will be rookie of the year, I would assume, unless if he unfortunately gets injured or something like that. But I would assume he's a runaway rookie of the year. Um, so the A's and Lawrence Butler, another guy. I mean, so the A's have
Yeah.
a lot of good players. It's just they got to find pitching, and I think if they find it, they'll be pretty competitive.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they can be, but yeah, they just need to figure out how to sink their claws into Vegas and make them, because I think it is the perfect reset for the A's personally going to Vegas because and I mean even in Sacramento, at least when I was there it was April, so maybe the fan support isn't there anymore, but I went on a Wednesday afternoon in Sacramento to an A's game. I mean, they packed out the. I mean, obviously it's only a double or AAA stadium. I can't remember, but people came out. People came out. So, but I think it's a perfect time. Hopefully they have a little bit of this like core built up and really going together, because I mean I still think you have, I can't remember what it is, but you still have 2 to 3 years before they actually move to Vegas. So they have plenty of time to figure it out to be decent when they go there, and maybe like if they could make a playoff spot, even if it was the last spot in the wild card. I feel like if you're in a city, which they have sports teams now, they've got the Aces, Raiders. Who else is in Vegas now? I mean, it feels like the hockey team they have out there, the Golden Knights.
Oh, Golden Knights.
Yeah, so I do think that it's something new, baseball. Well, I guess it's not something new. I don't know. The A's do have their work cut out for them because their AAA team plays there as well. Never mind. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting, but it is a good chance to reset and be like, okay, let's build a fan base here, and maybe that'll give fans in Vegas more of a reason to cheer for the A's. Hey, we've been watching these guys in AAA, and they get called up to the A's. These are the guys that we like because these are the guys we're watching. Maybe that's a way to tie in, and like you've already got your hooks in a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's the reason why. I mean, look at Missouri. The state of Missouri, probably just around Kansas City and, the greater Kansas City area, are Royals fans. And especially south, everybody is Cardinals fans. But you also have the AA team of the Springfield Cardinals there. Whereas, the other way around, in Omaha, you have, the Storm Chasers. So it gives you a little bit more, the Royals maybe a little bit up north in Kansas, getting their, getting their fan base up.
Yeah, you're right. And, further south, you have the Naturals of Arkansas, so.
True. Yeah.
So I think they try to touch, but I agree with you. I think Southern Missouri is more of a Cardinal area because of Springfield and stuff like that. But, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects of baseball. I think we covered like 47 of them.
Yeah, we've been talking about baseball for an hour now.
Yeah.
I did not expect baseball to be this long of a topic.
Well, I guess it's All-Star break for them, but not for us. But, let's see. I'm trying to think. Heavy hitters, home runs. Trying to think of one of my famous transitions here.
There you go.
Derek Lewis, how about that? First round, knocking the block off people's heads.
Big time
we kind of talked about him. Maybe his career was on the downslide, but I guess he showed us.
Yeah, 35 seconds, left hook to Taliesin Teixeira, big time knockout. I talked about it a little bit on the last podcast. It was, I think Dana White said it was an early stoppage. He felt like it definitely was not. Man had to sink his hooks into the cage to get up as he was getting wailed on. So I definitely think it was a very, very fair stoppage that I said, but huge knockout. I think the fights over the weekend were pretty good in Nashville. Did you watch them at all?
No, I missed them, but I heard about Lewis's knockout, and I think that's probably one of the only few I heard of. But I was kind of looking forward to Poirier Holloway 3. I think that's going to be fantastic as always. In terms of trilogy rivalry, well, I guess the rival was in a way because it's trilogy.
Yeah.
Where do you think Holloway Poirier ranks? Because I mean, the first two are wild. I mean, where do you think this one's going to rank? Because obviously they're both a little older now. But where do you think this one will rank in terms of? Let me ask you this question because that's a little hard. Who do you think is at a peakier point of their career this time around on the third fight?
Who do I think is at a what point in their career?
Who do you think's at a bigger peak in their career at this point on fight number 3?
Dang. I feel like that might be a really tough question just because I think they're both past their peaks. I think that, obviously this is Poirier's retirement fight. I think that Holloway is in a weird spot because do you really see him competing or contending at 155? I mean, the guy that just knocked him out at 145 is the current champ at 55 now. Maybe there's a clearing there once I mean, I think we all assume Poirier is going to try to move up to welterweight to challenge Makachev, possibly. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be, happen in real life. I just know a lot of people talk about speculating he wants Makachev, and Makachev moving up to 170 from 155. That's tough, man. I would say Holloway just because I think he's still a little bit more in the game right now. I mean, obviously this is Poirier's retirement fight, but maybe then you could say Poirier's peak because he is retiring, you know, on top. I'll give it the air quotes just for the simple fact that, obviously he's not a champion. I mean, he could become the BMF champion on Saturday night because it's for the BMF belt. But, I mean, it's the BMF belt. I mean, I think it's cool, but it's not a world championship, right? And I don't know. Man, that's a good question though. But I would say Holloway career wise, obviously because Poirier's is ending. But I think Poirier is going to get to run off, right off into the sunset. So maybe it's Poirier, especially if he gets a big win and takes that BMF belt home with him, John Cena style. He's the last real BMF.
Well, yeah, I guess I thought about that after I said it. I was like, oh wait, he's retiring after this, so I guess it didn't really matter. But well, I mean, well, let me ask you this: Is Poirier one of? Well, I shouldn't say that. In terms of baddest motherfuckers of all time, and obviously not just the belt,
He's up there.
but where does Poirier rank? Where
He's
do you
up
think
there,
he
man.
ranks all time?
I would say, that's tough. That's a tough to even define parameters because when I think of that, I think of, the Diaz bros, Tony Ferguson, Poirier. I think of Holloway. Um, I feel like there's quite a few people that come to my mind. I think that Poirier. I mean, he's up there. Just to see his career and what he went through. I mean, just the Conor McGregor trilogy alone, because that's what I was going to say a minute ago when you're talking about trilogies. I think that this is second best trilogy in Poirier's career alone. Although I think it's up there because it is, the way he beat Max Holloway in the second fight and just took it to him. Although I watched it recently and it was closer than I thought it was. I feel like I remembered Poirier just absolutely destroying Holloway the entire fight. Whereas it was, I mean, he beat him up, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. So, but I would say that McGregor one, I mean, it just was absolutely insane how, he went from, McGregor taught him a lesson. McGregor taught him, because I feel like that is the moment where he changed as a fighter. I think that, and it's just the determination that he had, and I think that falls right in line with baddest motherfucker, is the simple fact that, McGregor, knocked him out in the first round. He called his shot, basically, and, that made Poirier realize, okay, hey, I can't fight emotionally, right? I got to go in here and be cerebral and, fight with my brain on. And after he did that, I don't think it was that much longer after that where he beat Max Holloway in their second fight. And then to come back and beat Conor McGregor after getting beat up by McGregor. I think this is something that is lost on a lot of people at times. The fact that Conor McGregor was absolutely working Dustin Poirier in that second fight until Poirier, strung together a really good combo and knocked him out with one of the cleanest shots I think we've ever seen, if I'm being quite honest. And then to beat him in the third fight again.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I think you're spot on with that. It seems like Poirier kind of came on as that American underdog story.
Yeah.
From the southern states. Worked his way up, knocked some guys out. People were impressed with how tough he was. Da 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 da. And then he fights the big bad Irishman McGregor. Loses the first time, and then I, I think you kind of said it. Almost loses again. But ends up pulling off an upset knockout, and then his career takes off.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the whole Poirier story is. What people like so much is that he was the Southern guy who just wanted to fight and punch people's lights out and all this and all that, and that's what he's done his whole career. And that's why he's one of the best motherfuckers of all time. If you let me put it this way, if you were to line up 5 guys, and obviously we don't have to explain each one as to why, but if you were to line up 5 guys in a overall, this is a guy you got to pick, and not necessarily all time, just your favorite tough guy. 5 of the guys who you would have to pick right away to make a list. Your 5 favorite tough guys of all time. It don't have to be the best.
Like to
Those
get
would
me
be
out
the
of a bar
5.
fight kind of thing? Like
Sure,
one of
yeah,
those?
something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, yeah.
You know, I'd say Poirier might be on that list. I mean, Tony Ferguson. I think kind of some of the guys that I listed. I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in here, and I'm going to say Amanda Nunes because I wouldn't fight Amanda Nunes personally. Like, I wouldn't step in a cage with her. And I think, I mean, that's a bad woman right there. You know, the things that we saw her do to, like, Misha Tate, Ronda Rousey. So, okay, 5. I'll say Poirier for sure. I'll say Poirier just because of the drive, determination, you know, the way he fights. Let's go with Mike Platinum Perry, just because that's a bad motherfucker right there. Who else? We'll go Nate Diaz. That's 3 we got. I'm saying Amanda Nunes still, so we're going 4 right there, and 5. 5 is a tough one. Let me get Francis Ngannou at 5. I gotta have one big
Oh,
scary motherfucker.
that was going to be my one.
That's fair.
I'm trying to think. Let's see. All right, well, if we're going big fuckers, let's go Shane Carwin. Now, you got to go
Okay,
Shane Carwin,
that's
I
a good
think.
one. That's a
Um, let's see. How about Holly Holm? I mean, the whole.
not a bad one.
I mean, I don't think you want her kicking you in the head. Ask Ronda Rousey.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
you know,
that's a fact.
let's see who else. Who we got? Rashad Evans. Rashad Evans. I mean, talk about lightning power. Rashad Evans. You got one there. Um, a tough motherfucker. How about Forrest Griffin? That was a tough motherfucker. That was
That
a
is
tough
yeah.
motherfucker. And he got peppered a lot. I mean,
From the boonies
Anderson
of
Silva, Rich
Georgia.
Franklin. And,
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was a tough guy. And how about Matt Hughes?
Okay.
I mean, it's not as pretty as a list as yours, but I would say those are 5 tough people right there. I feel like.
Now, I mean, Matt Hughes survived a train wreck, so like yeah, I think Matt Hughes deserves to be on one of our lists. Thinking about it, and that's just a country dude, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough to, remember that these people are just normal people who can knock your head off,
I agree.
and I think that's part of it. Um, Before we wrap this up, because we talked about the America's pastime for feels like an American pastime, but
Yeah,
um,
no,
you
that's
know,
a fact.
um, a little throwback. And I don't know if because obviously we're big wrestling fans too, but we haven't talked about that in a while. But um, do you feel, because Ronda Rousey has come out multiple times, not just about UFC, but wrestling in general,
Yeah.
do you feel any different about Ronda's opinion on, not necessarily, I'm trying to think of the correct word, professional action sports now than you used to after she lost to Holly Holm? Do you feel any more sorry for her?
No, not at all. Not one bit. I think that she has kind of proven that she's just an asshole over the years. I mean, you know, I am kind of just like a sore loser, sore winner. I mean, we saw it in the UFC. I feel like then when she went to WWE and then, you know, had the interview after her first run, like, oh yeah, I like to go play fight with my friends. Like, just she is the outsider because she can't get along with anyone really. The fact that she didn't, have the gut to face the media ever again. I mean, and I get it. And I don't want to be like, I don't know, like the fuck your mental health guy or whatever, because I totally get that. But I mean, come on. Like at some point you gotta accept a loss. You gotta accept that you lost to Amanda. You gotta accept that you lost to Holly. It's all right. Everybody loses. And who do we love? I feel like all fans, and especially fight fans, we love a guy that is gonna look at Dominic Cruz against Cody Garbrandt. Like he is still praised to this day for standing up. Like he didn't even sit down at the press conference and sat there and went. He was the better man, is what he said. He beat me fair and square, and this, that, and the third. We love guys like that. Like, so I don't understand. I don't know. I just don't understand the mentality of somebody that just cannot face the music, really, at the end of the day. And to me, as somebody that has trained half of my life, has been in a cage before and fought, I just don't even understand how she could go home and look at herself in the face, in the mirror at the end of the day with, just being, I don't know. You still haven't accepted a loss from 10 years ago. I mean, it's okay.
She probably doesn't remember it. But,
well, that's fair, too. Especially that Amanda one. I mean, they were both really bad.
I mean, I'll give her the Amanda Nunes because, come on. But,
Yeah.
The Holly Holm was a shock. But then Holly Holm showed she could actually really fight. But, it turned out not to be such a shock. But,
well, I mean, Holly Holm was a professional boxer.
Right. Yeah. And I think the whole wrestling thing was just so weird. It's like, well, you asked to come there. They didn't, say, hey, Rhonda, we really need. They didn't need her. But they reached out to you, said, hey, are you interested? And she said, well, yes, I'm interested. You didn't have to do that.
Right.
You didn't have to come into WWE, and you knew what you're getting into. I mean, it's not like WWE fans or, baseball fans, well, they are, but, it's not the same kind of fans.
Right.
And if you go to a live show, you'll know what I mean. Because there are some people there who, I consider myself a fan of wrestling, but there are some fans of wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let me tell you. There are some people who say some very personal things about these people who are characters, all right? So, it's just, there are some fans out there who are fans. And, and I don't think she was ready for that. And I don't think she was understanding that you're going to get booed if you're not good. And you're going to get booed if you're not believable. And that was her problem. She just...
Or likable. And she proved at the end of her UFC run she is not likable.
Yeah.
Like she was while she was winning, but I feel like, if you did it all over again and she went on a huge winning streak and still acted the same way, I don't think she would have the same fan base that she had then. She's just not likable. And, it's like even during the pandemic where, she was putting out videos where it was like, because she lives on a farm with Travis Brown and, she's putting out these videos like, oh, you need to go to the store? I don't. Or, like, oh, do you need eggs? I don't. And I just remember seeing that and being like, what an ass. We're living in a worldwide pandemic. And she's just like, well, I'm good.
Yeah, tone deaf is the word that people like to use.
Yeah, very much so.
And I think she was just tone deaf to a lot of things, and I think she's tone deaf to her own failure. And I think that's fine, and a lot of pro athletes are, but at some point you're going to fail. And obviously WWE is a big jump, and not necessarily a harder jump, but it's a different jump. You have to do different things. You have to use a microphone and actually talk, and her talking like this and ha 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 ha. It's like, okay.
It's a promo, kid.
She needed Paul Heyman, and maybe they should have put her with Paul Heyman, and maybe that would have saved her wrestling career, but they just didn't. So, I don't know.
I will say good for her for helping her friends out too and raising the bar for them, I feel like. Because I guess I don't know where Shayna Baszler is at this point, but Marina Shafir was a part of All In over the weekend. I don't know what the hell she's doing, but she was with John Moxley at one point helping him in his match. So
Yeah, and I mean, she did bring some girls with her, and Shayna Baszler's, I think, just had a lot of injuries,
gotcha.
but she's brought a lot of women with her, and they had their own careers. And Shayna Baszler, I think, had a big push, a Rhea Ripley-ish push at one point, So she did bring some good with her, but I don't think she realized what she did. It was more about
Yeah.
her. It's more about what was she going to do and all that. So at the end of the day, do you feel like Ronda deserves more of the credit for the UFC Women's Division, or do you feel like it's Amanda Nunes who deserves the credit?
Ronda deserves all the credit. I mean, Amanda carried it. She became the greatest women's fighter of all time. But that is, I can't take that away from Ronda. I mean, Ronda built that. She's the whole reason they were there. I mean, it was just like a couple of years before she showed up. Dana White said he would never have women in the UFC, and all of a sudden, Ronda Mania happens, and I do think that she progressed women's sports, and she deserves to pat herself on the back for that. But it's the attitude thing. I can't take anything away that she's done because she's a UFC Hall of Famer. I mean, she's a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest fighters of all time. Like I said, I can't take that from her, but the attitude sucks. But she is still one of the greatest fighters of all time, just for the impact. I feel like just like we talked about a couple weeks ago when you brought up Chuck Liddell in like a top 3, top 5, whatever we did, that I thought that is an underrated answer because of what he did for the sport as a whole. Whereas Ronda, I mean, she is women's MMA to a point.
True. Yeah, that's true. I did think about that, but I just, I think people with Amanda now think, oh, well, she basically maybe took Ronda's spot.
Right. And I mean, she did, but I mean, she also didn't build it,
Yeah, it's because of Ronda. Yeah.
Yeah, she knocked her off the mountain.
Yeah,
she knocked her off the mountain that Ronda built.
Right. Well, I'm at 1%, so I'm going to finish with this. I'm going to make a bold prediction, and if it cuts off after my prediction, that's pretty cool, but I'm going to put it at this. The Royals will win 40 of their last games and make the last wild card spot.
All right. The Royals will be in. I'll put it down. I'm writing it down. It was similar to what Bryce did last year, calling it. I appreciate you, DJ, for joining the show. Everybody's heard. We don't need to talk about Trey Smith. $94 million 4-year deal. $70 million guaranteed.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Trey Smith, and we said we
don't need to. He's back. It's fine. Everything's fine.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. I'd hate to see us without him. There we go. That's
exactly what you texted me, and that's perfect. Well, I appreciate you, DJ, and you take it easy, my man. We'll see you next time. If you are still here at this point in the podcast, I greatly appreciate you because we are at an hour and a half. Me and EDJ went pretty much. Awesome to have EDJ on the pod. I kind of had an impromptu episode. Didn't get the episode up by Monday, and got one out on Tuesday. We recorded here Wednesday night, now Thursday for your viewing pleasure. And we will be back next week with another podcast. But until then, make sure you smash that subscribe button if you're still here. I mean, you obviously enjoy the content. At least hit the like button for me. Also hit that bell if you want to stay notified. I will be going live 8 p.m. Central Time Saturday night for a preview of UFC 318, the main card. I'm going to be running that down. I should be live on several platforms, definitely right here on YouTube. Plan to go on Twitch, maybe TikTok. We'll see how that goes. But I am going live for that to break all that down, all that good stuff. More player film breakdowns to come. I think Rashee Rice is the next on the docket for us as the Jaden Hicks one. You guys have responded great to. I really appreciate it as well. So until next time, Whip Hop Shro.